Previously on Higurashi When They Cry console arcs.
へえ。
何か。
ごめんなさい。私、髪をほどいた夏美さんを初めて見たから。とっても綺麗な髪ね。
そうですか？
ええ。艶やかだし、滑らかで、髪を洗うの結構時間かけてるんじゃない？普段からトリートメントをしっかりやっていないと、こうはならないもの。
ありがとうございます。
Embarrassed by Tomoe's impressions, Natsumi suddenly looked away to hide her burning cheeks. Even if it was flattering, she couldn't quite handle being called beautiful.
それに、お団子結びだからあんまり目立たないけど、相当伸ばしているのね。これならストレートで流している方がきっと可愛いと思うんだけどな。どうしたの、夏美さん。
For some reason, Natsumi suddenly turned her gaze downward and started looking gloomy.
夏美さん、むしろ私はあなたの方こそ羨ましいわよ。私はこういう性格だから、口よりも手が早くて、しょっちゅう男子相手にでも喧嘩を追っ始めるやつだったの。それに背もこんなで胸も、まあ、こんな感じで。ワンピースの似合う同級生がすごく妬ましかったし、色気なしってことでこっぴどい失恋をした時もあって、かなり落ち込んだこともあったな。
ともえさんがですか？
そりゃ私も学生時代はそれなりに乙女だったからね。かっこいい人を好きになって告白して、見事玉砕なんてことが何度もあったわ。だからどうやったら可愛くなれるかとか、男の人の好みに近づけるのかなんて、今から考えれば笑っちゃうようなことで悩んで、いろいろと無理な背伸びをやってみたな。
だけど。私、そんな風に思えない。あなただから。そんなにも心が強いともえさんだから、そんなことが言えるんです。
夏美さん。
名前聞いてごめんなさい。でも私は、そんなにも割り切って、自分を信じることができない。いいところって言われても何も思いつかないし、悪いところを人に指摘されて、それがどうしたなんて開き直ることもできない。だから、私は、あなたみたいにはなれない。それが、よく、わかってるんです。
Is it really alright to shift the timing of taking medication? Depends. Those concerns ran through her head, but it was hard to imagine Natsumi suffering from some disease that could drastically change after just a few hours without medication. If she said it was fine, then maybe it really wasn't a problem.
ビタミン剤と同じで、ちょっと飲みすぎたり、飲み足りなかったりしても大丈夫だって、先生が言ってましたから。最近は、勉強が終わったら飲むようにしているんです。そうすると、頭がすっきりして、いい感じになるんですよ。
へえ、便利な薬ね。でも、どんな薬でも飲みすぎたり頼りすぎたりするのは体に毒よ。
はい、気をつけます。
At any rate, Tomei started thinking she was being overly concerned and neglecting the things right in front of her. So, she started moving the dishes to the corner of the table.
で、リュウグウ、レイナ。
Talking of Natsumi and helping her study like this made Tomei think of another girl, of roughly the same age, who was also a material witness. Or rather, a potential suspect that was still being pursued. Thinking about the absurdity of that juxtaposition made her chest ache.
平気です。 ここの店長さんって、実は知り合いですから。
Oh?
私の親戚のおじいちゃんの将棋仲間で、お願いしたらここを使ってもいいって。
へえ。じゃあ、その親戚さんも、この柿内に？
いえ、住んでいるのはひなみ沢って言って、沖宮の隣なんです。そこの村の、村長さん。正確には、町会長さんをやっています。
Memories from half a year ago stirred within Tomoe when she heard that explanation. Back when she visited there with Uushi, he told her about the 3 families that reigned over Hinamizawa, one of which was the Kimiyoshi family. And it's true that the mayor's name was Keiichiru Kimiyoshi.
私は園崎家を筆頭とする御三家が怪しいと睨んでいます。
見ないさん。
She recalled the humble smile of a girl who loved flowers. Tomoe got too heavily involved with her, and then she lost her life. If she hadn't been connected to the series of murders in Hinamizawa, she'd be living a peaceful life right now.
あの子の未来を奪ったのは、私だ。
Even now, every time she saw a long-haired girl passing by, it brought back memories of their conversation back then. Carelessly getting people involved with the series of deaths in Hinamizawa is literally putting their lives at risk. It had already claimed many. She didn't want to see another innocent, blameless child with a right to be happy suffering misfortune.
え？
お姉ちゃん。
Natsume faintly muttered that in her sleep, while her cheek was resting against her shoulder. The occasional light from the bright street lights and neon signs revealed her calm, sleeping face, which was lovely for someone her age.
変な感じだな。
Tomoe was used to being looked up to for her caring nature, but she'd only known Natsume for half a year now. And yet, she hadn't felt this heartwarming feeling of looking out for her younger sister since she was a child. She was a little surprised that she could get close enough to fawn over someone like this. And, even though she was naturally able to accept it, somehow she also felt discomfort. Even though, in consideration of her job, she should have refrained from getting too close. But as strange as that feeling was, she couldn't say she felt unpleasant. In fact, she was delighted. And very comforted. And so it continues. Greetings! My name's Neosekken, and welcome back to my Let's Play of the Higurashi When They Cry console arcs. So, we're going to be pausing our journey through Miotsukushi Ura and going back to Miotsukushi Omote for a short spell because, well, I stopped at the wrong spot. Turns out I can't read. Somehow I ended up misreading the name Rina as Rika, and because of that little misunderstanding, I ended up stopping Omote at the scene featuring Rika at the hospital instead of Rina at the hospital, which is when I was actually supposed to stop this thing, apparently. So, yeah, I done fucked up, so like I said, we're gonna go back to Omote for a short bit until I get to and through the scene, the proper scene I was supposed to see, and then we're gonna go back to Ura again and finish and complete the rest of that before going back to Omote for good and finishing that. Apologies for all the confusion, but yeah, again. This is my screw up here, so just bear with me, everybody. Hopefully this will be the last one I make.
今日は快速に乗っ取り、部員の諸君に是非を問いたい。
Mion's got her ventriloquist act going too, it seems. She's talking without moving her lips. The moment class ended, Mion turned her desk toward us, like usual, began shouting in our direction.
我が部活も今や、ひなみ沢はおろか、沖宮においてもその有名を轟かせることとなった。
有名って、悪名の間違いじゃないのか？
Yeah, I'd say infamous is a better descriptor.
キエイチくん。
そこでだ。今後我が部の活動範囲も広がり、そしてそれに伴い、多種多様な敵と戦うにあたって戦力増強を行う必要がある。
What, you want to make us a Japanese national sensation or something?
そのためには
無視かよ。
要は新しく部員を入れようって話なの。
こらレナー、一番美味しいセリフを取っていくんじゃない。
Was she trying to say that like some kind of a propaganda speech? Just speak clearly. Don't waste our time.
でも確かに部員が増えるってのは面白いよな。球技でも何でもゲームの面白さが広がって楽しくなるぜ。
Well, under normal circumstances, we would be expanding the club right about now, actually, but, well, the circumstances currently present are anything but ordinary. The dog is missing.
目のはいいなし。どんな相手が来ても私の相手になれる人がいるとは考えられませんけどね。僕もさとこも賛成しますですよ。
The three of them, including Rika-chan who came back after lunchtime, all agreed to Mion's proposition. And I, of course, welcomed it.
で、それはいいんだが、誰を入れるつもりなんだ？
No matter how much we want to recruit new members, we'd get nowhere if nobody applied. Plus, even if they want to join our club, they get nowhere with the skill and willpower of an ordinary person. That's why you gotta train them! You gotta break them down and rebuild them into a proper member of the club. Like a drill sergeant!
富田くん？それとも岡村くん？あの二人だとしたら思いっきり参加条件を厳しくしてやりたいところですわ。
Still resentful about their betrayal in the earlier exchange of Shion, Sadako crossed her arms and stared daggers at Tomota-kun and Okamura-kun. When their eyes met, they shivered and held their hands together. Indeed, even if they did want to join the club, the entrance criteria would be strict, especially from Sadako.
みんなわかんないかな。みんなの目の前にいるじゃん。
あ？
目の前？
We all looked around the classroom in response to Mion's declaration, but the entire class was still in the room, so I couldn't tell who she was referring to.
Huh?
Everyone is still here? Isn't that a little unusual? Usually, most of the class is ready to head home shortly after school lets out. But they were all still here, expectantly looking in our direction.
まさか。
You recruited the whole classroom, didn't you?
そう、その通り。我が部活への入部希望者はこのクラス全員だ。
Okay, what'd you bribe them all with? A lifetime supply of soda?
お願いします。
Following Mion's lead, everyone in the class all around us began shouting their appeal.
すごい。私たちの部活ってこんなに皆さんから認知されておりましたのね。
And you don't seem very pleased about this, Sadako. What gives? You're getting acknowledgement. Be happy. Reina and Sadako were stunned by their enormous magnitude. Of course, the same could be said about me.
この人数ならアメリカンフットボールだってできてしまえるのです。
Wait, isn't that horribly physically demanding? Yes, for the average person it certainly is.
しかしすごい規模だな。ああ、もちろん OK だ。入部を認め。
The moment I tried to answer,
しかーし、我が部活には鉄の掟がある。入部を希望する者は私たちが用意する厳しい入部テストを突破しなければいけないのだ。はあ？
みーちゃん？
we were all surprised. Since when was that a rule? Just now, I assume. No, I'm certain she just came up with that on the spot.
さあ、あんたたちにこの試練を乗り越える勇気と根性はあるか？
Well, since I'm certain that the status quo is God will be put into effect here, I'm going to assume ahead of time that no. None of them will be able to overcome whatever trial you have in store for them.
Hi!
Forgive me for raining on your parade ahead of time, but I just have a gut feeling. Everyone in the class had huge smiles and pleasant feelings as they gave an immediate answer. Once Mion saw that, she gave a satisfied nod and then made a proclamation.
では、明日新入部員テストを行う。種目は缶蹴りだ。
Okay, if it's you kick the can, huh? Is somebody gonna be the can? Are we gonna put Keiichi in a giant soda can costume? Or is this going to be a bit more relatively mundane and it's just kick the can, but you throw things at each other or something in the interim? Like bricks! And the next day. The last class of the afternoon was PE, so we changed into our gym clothes and went out to the schoolyard. Our underclassmen had all rushed out there and were waiting with their heads turned this way.
よ、待たせたの。
Kept you waiting, huh?
I tried calling out to them casually, but halfway into it, I stopped and held up a hand. They were all looking at us with tense, spirited looks rather than their usual smiles.
よろしくお願いします。
They turned to us and shouted with booming voices. For a moment, I felt overwhelmed by the pressure.
お、お。
I shouted back at them without missing a beat. Younger students successfully conveyed their tremendous spirit, and I was thrilled that they were so passionate about becoming our comrades.
おお、みんな気合入ってるね。こりゃ楽しみだよ。
なんだかとっても手強そう。こっちもいつも以上に頑張らないとね。
Then, Reina and Mion came out to the schoolyard with huge smiles on their faces after witnessing the passion of our underclassmen. But there was no levity in their eyes. They were like raptors stalking their prey as they sized up the adversaries before them. Indeed, the game has already begun.
強い敵ほど倒しがいがあるというものでございますわ。
北条、その余裕いつまで続くかな。
あら、しおんさんの腰巾着の分際でいつからそんな大口を？はっ
はっは。あなた方の腐敗伝説も今日が限りとさせてもらいますよ。
Okamura, don't oversell yourself. You have no idea the dragon you are bullying right now. Tomata-kun and Okamura-kun wasted no time before provoking her. Rather than dancing to Sadako's cynicism, they were flexing and patting their arms. An impressive display. If they join our group, they'll become an unstoppable force with the proper training.
ケイチ君、
Bet you my
ま
arms
だ早いよ。
are twice as big, easily. Probably 4 times.
誰を入部させるかは 今日のこの時間にかかってるんだから。
Reina casually hammered a nail straight into my thoughts. Well, I suppose that's true. But regardless of who makes the cut, I'm excited by the prospect of new members.
とはいえ、私たちのオメガネにかなわなかったら入部者ゼロってのもありえるけどね。
そういうことですわ。さて、私たち相手にどこまで楽しませてもらえるのか、とくと拝見させていただきますわ。
Even though this was just an entrance exam, the three of them were absolutely unforgiving. I understand how they feel, but isn't it unfair to suddenly demand they perform at the same level as the rest of us? Or maybe I'm getting soft. Yes. The answer is yes. Just then,
強い思いがあれば、きっと頑張れるのです。だから僕たちも本気でぶつかってあげるのが礼儀だと思うのです。
リカちゃん。
高い山になればそれだけ越えた時の嬉しさも増すのです。だからケイイチもファイト王なのですよ。
Rika-chan seemed to sense my hesitation and offered me encouragement. Hearing her say that did make the weight feel a little lighter. Indeed, that's true. A competition is only meaningful if you and your opponents both clash at full power. In fact, to come at them with half-hearted softness would be terribly insulting.
そうだな。よし。俺も全力以上で頑張るぜ。どうしたリカちゃん。
ケイイチ、今の言葉で何か思い出したりしませんですか？
今の言葉？どういう意味だリカちゃん。
いえ、何でもないのです。
Think harder, Keiichi!
ん？
Riki-chan's expression seemed to cloud over for a moment. But before I had a chance to ask any further, Riki-chan turned and began walking towards Sadako without looking back.
どうしたの？ケイイチくん。
あ、いや、なんでもない。
I don't know what it is, but it feels like something is stirring deep in my chest.
さて、それじゃあまずは光線規定だ。みんな、これを背中につけてくれる？
Mion began passing out white slips to everyone as she said that. They were made of white rectangular fabric, like the sort of thing you'd see people wearing at an athletic meet. Rika-chan was carrying a box of safety pins and black magic markers that she had prepared in advance.
通常なら見つけた子の名前を読み上げるのがルールだけど、校庭なら見晴らしが良くて鬼には有利だからね。そこで今回は好きな番号をゼッケンに書いて、それを背中に貼り付ける。その背番号を缶に足をつけた鬼に読み上げられたらアウトだよ。それから
Reina carefully drew a circle with a radius of 1 meter on the ground in chalk, while Mion continued her explanation.
鬼が缶に触れている間はタッチされてもアウト。ただし鬼は白い円の中に入っていいのは5秒間だけだからね。
なるほど。あ、それなら適当に番号言ってもいいのか？
その場合は、あ、リカちゃん、悪いけど審判お願いしていい？
審判ですか？
Rika-chan was still in the middle of passing out safety pins and markers to the younger students when she suddenly looked up at Mion.
そう。ちゃんと鬼が背番号の数字を読み上げたか、リカちゃんに判断してもらう。リカちゃんの言うことにはみんな従うこと。これなら誰も文句言ったりしないでしょ？
了解なのです。まだちょっと調子が良くなかったからちょうど良かったのです。
Now that she mentions it, her complexion does look a little pale.
大丈夫ですの？リカ。見ているだけなら平気なのです。サトコは僕の分までファイト王なのですよ。リカの分まで頑張ったら私の相手になれる人間など銀河系には存在しなくなってしまいますわ。
Saka let out a boisterous, energetic laugh as she said that. Rika-chan clapped her hands together when she saw that.
宇宙最強コンビなのです。僕たちがタッグを組めば天下無双、元気爆発なのですよ。みぱー。
I don't quite understand the meaning of that, but regardless, that's some impressive self-confidence.
さて、それじゃあ肝心の入部の条件を言うよ。部活メンバーが鬼になるから、入部希望者は私たちに捕まることなく缶を蹴飛ばすことができれば勝ちだ。制限時間はこの体育の時間内。わかった？ああ
Excuse me. I see. So the qualification for entering our club is to successfully break through our defenses. If that's the case, I'm glad to welcome any of the winners among our ranks.
ちなみに妨害は抱きついたり捕まえたりは OK だけど、グーパンチ、キックはなし。
Got it. You can headbutt.
いいね、レナ。
ああ、なんでレナだけ名指しなのかな、この。
Reina became sullen. But if she was able to use her punches freely, everyone would be KO'd, and the game would end before we could even read any numbers out.
しかし結構なハンデだな。これはなかなかハードかも。
ケイちゃん、この程度で尻込み？私たち部活メンバーにゃこの程度のハンデは軽すぎるくらいだよ。
Exactly! You can still headbutt, butthead!
バカにするな。ミオンこそあっさり抜かれて勝ちを譲ったりするなよ。
その意気その意気。私たちの実力と部活の厳しさをみんなに骨の髄まで思い知らせてやろう。
Then, after confirming that all the club members were prepared to be it, and confirming that all the younger students had properly affixed some numbers to their clothes with safety pins, Mion shouted a proclamation.
それじゃあゲーム開始。キックオフは富田くんよろしく。任せてください。蹴った缶をここに戻してから100数えるまでに各自3回するように。さあ戦闘開始。
On Mion's command, Tomota-kun ran up and kicked the empty can sitting inside the white circle. Pow! The can let out a satisfying sound as it flew through the air. And at the same time, the younger classmates cheered as they rushed away from here.
すごいキック力だね。
As she said that, Reina immediately rushed over to where the can landed, then returned it to the white circle in a flash. And with one foot on the can, she began counting 1, 2, 3, 4.
あれ、そういえばその缶、昨日のカレー缶だよな。中身はどうした？捨てたのか？
そんな恐ろしいことできないって。ちゃんとチェイ先生が昼食で食べてくれたよ。
なるほど。
Come to think of it, Chi-sensei seemed to be in a better mood than usual after lunch break. But wasn't that a commercial-sized can large enough to feed 10 people?
カレーの鬼だね。まさに。
Wait, am I the only one feeling slightly different about this? I guess it's fine then. Your dismissal of this is going to be your undoing, Keiichi. You dumb dunce.
96、97、98、99、100。
Meanwhile, Reina finished counting to 100, and we all switched into battle mode. Reina stayed behind as the last line of defense, while Mion, Sadako, and I spread out along the back of the school building, where the students would be hiding.
さて、どこだ？
I carefully surveyed my surroundings. Unlike in Zombie Tag, where I can get someone out just by touching them, in this game, I have to check the numbers on their backs. In order to do that, I have to push them to retreat, and then drive them to a position where their backs are visible. Of course, I might also be able to catch them and force them to show their backs. But if I discover two people together, there's a possibility that one of them could struggle well enough to allow the other to escape and target the can. The rules in this special variant of Kick the Can demand considerable battle tactics. When I suddenly noticed a shadow and turned toward it, I found two classmates hiding inside a narrow gap. Our eyes met, and then they rushed toward the can. Perhaps their plan from the beginning was to run in different directions, and then rush to the can. But the moment they turned their backs, I could see their numbers. I rushed past the two of them in an instant and slammed my foot down on the can hard enough to crush it. And then, Keiichi, you're destroying the can!
748559
アウトなのです。
As soon as Rika-chan raised her hand, the two I had been pursuing knelt down on the ground. Shortly afterwards, 3 more students were driven out of the back of the school building by Sadako, and they came rushing to the can at my feet.
ケイチさん、691-574-164でございますわ。
よし、691-574-164。
3人撃墜なのです。
I recited the numbers Sadako communicated and stepped on the can. As soon as Rika-chan saw that, she raised her hand and declared the 3 of them out. I see. That's a valid tactic under these special rules. The hound, it, pursues a foe, and the hunter, it, finishes them off from beside the can. The strategy works because multiple people are it. The hound's role is to drive them out, confirm their numbers, and the hunter can finish them off when they approach the can. In other words, cooperation is critical, and the greatest weapon we club members have at our disposal. So, they could just simply keep their distance from the can and try to lure some of the hounds away. So some of the other its that aren't being hounded could try to go for the can. Surely they can try that, yeah?
ケイチくん、行ったよ。488-294。
よし来た 488-294。
In accordance with the rules, I stepped out of the white circle before Rika-chan could finish her 5-second count. Then I went back in to step on the can and call out the numbers. Next, the classmates driven up by Mion rushed toward the can, hoping to plan a comeback.
ケイちゃん、よろしく。619-722-980。
And, a few minutes later,
よし、次。って、あれ？もう終わり？
It's already over? Dang, that was fast. Mion counted the number of prisoners waiting near the can, then came to a halt. In the blink of an eye, all of our underclassmen were out. See? I told you. Status quo is God is in effect. We are getting no new members today.
もう少し頑張ってくれると思ってたんだけど、ちょっと見込み違いかな。
おい、そんな言い方はないだろう。
でもさ、これじゃ準備運動にもならないよ。
Mion called out in a bewildered voice and scratched her head, right in front of our junior students. Looking at Reina and Sadako, neither of them were sweating or out of breath. And of course, since I took on the hunter role partway through the game, the same was true for me.
なあ、ミオン。やっぱもう少し条件を下級生有利にするってのはどうだ？
今だって十分有利だよ。名前読み上げなくていいんだから。もし攻守が逆だったら、とっくに私たち缶を蹴飛ばしてるところだよ。
Mion mercilessly shot down my suggestion. Indeed, we probably would have sent 1 or 2 people to advance, then used that opening to launch a pincer attack. So I understood what Mion was trying to say.
これじゃ、ちょっと入部は難しいね。
しかしな、ミオン。 ん
Akamura-kun had been whispering something until a moment ago, and he suddenly raised his head in response to my conversation with Mion.
もう一度やらせてください。
On that signal, the junior students who were seated on the ground all stood up at once.
みんな。
ほう。いいよ。でも今の調子なら何度やっても同じことだけどね。
次は違います。次こそ勝負です。
As he said that, Akamura-kun picked up the can and sat down in position for kickoff, and all the younger students were holding their breath and ready to run.
よし、それじゃあ再戦だ。リカちゃん、よろしく。
はじめなのです。
Pow. On Rika's signal, Akamura-kun launched the can into the air. And once again, younger students immediately ran behind the school building to hide themselves.
さーて、次はどんな策で来るかな。
Mion stretched her legs and grinned like she was ready and waiting. Reina returned the can to the circle and began counting out the numbers, and Saka was standing beside her, cracking her knuckles.
通常の缶蹴りの戦法ではダメだと岡村さんたちも分かったはずですわ。となると次は
さとこもそう読むかい？なら決まりだね。ケイちゃん、次の反対役は私で行くよ。ケイちゃんはバックアップ。レナ、任せたよ。
分かったよ。
おう。
I'm not sure, but it seems like Mion and Sadako were able to predict Akamura-kun's strategy.
けど、どんな作戦で？
Suddenly, I turned to the school building. I could see our underclassmen standing in the shadows on the left and right side of the school building, looking this way with no attempt to hide themselves.
97、98、99、100。
The moment Reina finished her 100 count, the junior students huddled together and launched a mass attack.
なるほど。読まれる前に物量攻撃か。
いい読みだよ。でも、まだ不足。
Supporting Mion's declaration, Reina charged in alone toward the mob of students. She was outnumbered, but that word had no meaning in Reina's dictionary.
小さい子たちの頑張る姿、かわいい。
This line is just begging to be clipped and used for something else.
お持ち帰り。
An immediate display of superhuman skill. The younger students were down on the ground in no time, and looks on their faces made it clear they had no idea what happened. Among them, some of the girls were being squeezed by Reina as she rubbed her cheeks against them in her cute mode, with her chameleon-like tongue sticking out. Oh dear. Oh dear.
レナパンチ使ってないよな。
はっきりとは見えてませんが、倒れた子にあざができてないので、打撃はなかったと判断しますです。
For the time being, Rika-chan declared that Reina's attacks were both valid and approved. But since when could Reina use Aikido?
さすがレナ。あいつなら折った箸入れの紙ででも割り箸を折ることができそうだな。
ああ、それどっちらけだよ。隠した指で折ってるだけだから。
As we made those comments, Tomoto-kun and the other boys quickly rose to their feet. However, Sadako used that brief opportunity to deal the fatal blow.
ミオンさん、474-387-199-682ですわ。
ほい来た。474-387-199-682。
アウトなのです。
Tomote-kun and the others were stunned that they were shot down the moment they tried to get up and run. Indeed, while Reina stopped them with her mass attack, Sadako snuck up behind them and took an aim at their defenseless backs as they tried to get back up.
691-574-164 丸見えだよ。
Then, the students who tried to avoid showing their backs to Sadako as they stood up were in fact pointing their backs toward Mion at the can, so she was able to take them down easily. Yeah, you gotta keep in mind where all your attackers are. Meanwhile, the girls Reina was holding lost the will to resist, so Reina was able to read their numbers and get them out.
狙いは良かったんだけどね。力押しじゃレナに勝てないよ。さて、どうする？もう
まだです。まだ終わりません。
Tomote-kun and Okamura-kun got up once again, clutching their fists. The other kids were shocked by the overwhelming difference in power. But even so, their will to join the club was strong enough to fall behind those two.
いい心構えだね。それじゃ、泣いて降参って言うまで叩き潰してあげるよ。
おい、ミオン。
I tried to say something to keep Mion under control, but she provoked them by tapping the can in the circle with her toe. It seemed like she was trying to make the younger students look stupid. I was a little offended.
さあ、次のキックオフは誰かな？
Somehow, I started to feel uncomfortable. The Mion I've known until now was a little rough with her language, and sometimes took a stance that could easily be misunderstood. But deep down, she was a really kind-hearted and thoughtful girl. So, even though we were all supposed to play aggressively in our club activities, I think she still ought to be cognizant of the position the younger students are in. But this time, it was weird. It seemed like she was bullying them just to flaunt her power. I'd never seen a Mion like this before.
ひょっとしてシオン？いえ、そうでもなさそうなのです。
I immediately struck down that thought. Indeed, Shion did occasionally go to school disguised as Mion, but that was generally with the intention of investigating the secrets of Hinamizawa and the Sonozaki family. Given what I saw yesterday, that was probably not the case. Plus, this iteration of Keiichi and Reina should be able to easily recognize the difference between Mion and Shion. In which case, that girl is actually Mion? There's more and more I don't understand. There's also the subject of new club members. Normally she would have welcomed anyone who wanted to participate, without making them go through an entrance test like this. Plus, she always tried to choose games that everyone could enjoy equally, setting up an environment where beginners could easily enter. That was our class representative, Mion Sonozaki.
この世界は一体？
My doubts and anxiety suddenly surfaced through that question. But there was no reply. No, the person who was always by my side would have answered that. But now, all I could do was sigh in vain. It's frightening. Even though I wasn't cold, my entire body was trembling. The usual circumstances had become boring. Yes, like things were before. I was looking forward to a bit of a change. Right, I was thinking that just a little while ago. When it doesn't rain on a day when it's supposed to rain, or when a person who shouldn't come shows up. Those sort of events excited me. In my callous boredom, those deviations from my predictions made my days feel strangely interesting, even though my life has repeated thousands of times. And yet, even so, why am I feeling so anxious right now? Why am I so scared? So lonely, so sad. even though I'm a witch. Even after living thousands of years and seeing so many unforgettable changes in the fate of so many people. Even though I should be some supernatural being that has overcome the fear of death.
どうして
I asked that question over and over inside my heart. Why? 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 I repeated the question like a broken record, but I never received an answer. And then I finally realized.
そうか
The reason my heart was always stable was because I always had a destination. Like how birds in the sky are able to follow the sun to find their nests. Or how a ship pulling into the harbor slowly follows the channel markers. For me, Hanyu was always there. So, I felt at ease. Even if I was crying, angry, or depressed, somehow I was able to get my heart back on the right track. But Hanyu was no longer here. And because of that, I could no longer calmly accept the changes I'd never seen before. Shion being kind to Sadako, Mion treating the younger classmates coldly. Though I used to enjoy the pleasure of witnessing an unprecedented fate, now it just made me anxious about the future. How pitiful. Was I always such a piddling creature?
633-718-549-9どうリカちゃん。
アウトなのです
I disguised my facial expression and responded to Mion's proclamation by calling them out. To be honest, I wanted to vent my disgust with a frown. I couldn't understand what Mion was thinking, but I felt uncomfortable either way. Mion looked delighted as she called out the numbers of the younger students one after another. It was vexing. So, I just kept thinking about when this unpleasant moment would come to an end.
711-623ってあれもう終わり
After reading out the numbers Sadako provided her, and verifying there were no other younger students left, Mion said that with an audacious smile on her face. Reina and Sadako were both breathing hard with a little sweat on their foreheads, but they still seemed to have plenty of strength left. On the other hand, the underclassmen hoping to join the club. Eventually, Tomoto-kun and Okamura-kun knelt down onto the ground. Those two were still in good shape, but the other kids, especially the younger girls, were drenched in sweat and half smiling while breathing raggedly. My chest ached, and this wasn't the first time. The pain was so hot that it was about to burst through my chest at any moment.
みーちゃんそろそろ時間
さてどうするまだやる
もちろんです
Okamura-kun and Tomoto-kun courageously rose to their feet as they said that. However, the other kids were unable to stand like them. Some had even given up. After catching a quick glimpse of their expressions, they quickly came to regret the gesture. They felt helpless. And above all, they were disappointed in their resignation. Wait a minute. Is this actually a secret test? To just simply pick out the ones who refuse to give up to the absolute bitter end? After everyone else gives up? It must be frustrating. It must be irritating. Rather than treating your opponent with hostility or hatred, when you know that you're helpless, all you can do is feel your guts boil over. And when you finally give in and choose to surrender, you end up feeling more and more of that depressing self-loathing.
なあミオ、も
ダメだよ。
Mion responded coldly and wouldn't listen at all. I suddenly turned toward her, but she quickly turned away with a calm expression.
ケイちゃんの気持ちはわかるけどさ、私たちの仲間になりたいのなら、それだけの実力を伴わないとね。常に諦めない、くじけない、ひるまない強い心が、私たち部活メンバーに必要なこと。だから簡単に諦めたり、最後まで頑張れない奴は必要ない。まして結果を得られないなんて論外。ナンセンスだよ。
う、なんだよそれ。
ケイイチさんは最近負けが込んでますし、敗者の立場になってお考えになりたくなる気持ちもわからないわけじゃありませんけど、勝負は勝ってこそ意味があるものでしてよ。ケイイチくん、同情してみんなをレナたちの仲間に入れても、実力が違いすぎて、いつか楽しめなくなると思うな。ゲームでも負けてばかりだとつまんないでしょ。
いいか、ゆとり教育とか個性の尊重なんて教育ぶった奴らが戻しに顔で言ってるが、そんなのは弱者のたわごとだ。意義とかやりがいよりも受験戦争は勝つことが一番の命題と思え。チャイルディッシュな優しさや平等意識には何の意味もない。群がってくる奴らを蹴落としてひたすら勝ちを目指せ。お前たちは
そういうこと。だからもうおしまい。はい、終了。そろそろ体育の授業も終わり近いし、クールダウンでもして。
ふざけんじゃねえ。
Finally, I turned to Mion and shouted out all my rage. Yes, rage. The unpleasant, painful sensation smoldering deep in my chest all this time was rage. Against Mion! No need for people who can't give their all. Out of the question if they can't produce results. Games are only about winning. It's boring if you just lose? Well, they're not wrong about any of these things, Keiichi. At least at face value. Bullshit, 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 bullshit! What's with that? That's just like the old days when I was back in Tokyo. Results are everything. Anything is fine if you put yourself above others. So just focus on winning and being superior, devoting all your time to that, burying yourself in it. Before long, I lost sight of what I was fighting for. It lost its significance and was just left hanging there. In the end, was the competition even fun? No, I don't give a damn about my past. I've already cast it aside. But more importantly, more than anything else, I can't stand that my friends Mion, Reina, and Sadako are the ones saying these things. After all, I'm right about this, aren't I? If someone can't give it their all, I'll support them until they can stand back up. If they're feeling discouraged, I'll lend them a shoulder and tell them to do their best and have fun. If they can't get results, I'll stay beside them until they can. If they want to give up, we should lower the hurdle and give them the joy of reaching the goal. And so, what if there's someone who can't win? That's nonsense! If you can't win alone, work with someone else. And if that's not enough, bring 4 times as many. Then...
ひなみ沢の伝統。
え？
一人に石を投げられたら二人で石を投げ返せ。二人に石を投げられたら4人で石を。8人に棒で追われたら16人で追い返し、30人に中傷されたなら60人で怒鳴り返せ。1000人に襲われたならひなみ沢の全員で立ち向かえ。だったよな。
圭一君。
それがひなみ沢の心意気だ。だから俺は決めた。こいつら全員を俺たちの仲間にする。たとえお前らが拒んでも。そして諦めない強さと勝つ喜びを最後までずっと手に入れるまでこいつらに教え続けてやる。
圭一さん。
Sako tried to squeeze a few words out, but Mion immediately stepped in front of me. Then, a grin floated to her face as she responded.
へえ、ケイちゃん、随分と立派なことを言えるようになったね。いやいや、すごいすごい。おじさん感動して涙が出てきちゃいそうだよ。でも分かってる？ケイちゃん一人が生きがっても私たちは納得したりしないよ。どうする？
The moment she said that, just for that one brief moment, I hated the unbearably annoying Mion standing before me. Was the person standing before me really my best friend Mion Sonozaki? With my doubts and disappointment nagging at me, I considered denouncing our friendship right there. But thinking it over, that was a bad idea. Keeping your distance because you don't like something. Cutting off a relationship because you're annoyed. Doing that would be just running away and admitting I couldn't win against Mion and the others. If that's the case, then there's only one thing to do. Win!
ああ、分かってるさ。俺たち部活メンバーのルール。勝った方が正義。
Might makes right!
だから、俺がこいつらを勝たせてやる。
ほう、言ったね、ケイちゃん。断っておくけど、私たち相手に戦うってことはそれ相応の覚悟をしてもらうことになるよ。
もちろん。どんな罰ゲームでも何でもドンと持ってきやがれ。その代わり俺が勝ったらいいな。恨みっこなしで俺の要求を無条件で飲んでもらうぜ。
心証出罰は守るよ。私たち3人以外の誰かが缶を蹴ることができたらケイちゃんの勝ちだ。もっともその必要は限りなく
その言葉忘れるなよ。よーしみんな。
Okamura-kun looked so touched by our words. I vigorously turned around and faced the despondent underclassmen. Every last one of them looked exhausted. Tomota-kun and Okamura-kun were still standing and looking up, but most of them were on the ground, struggling to even hold their heads up. I don't know, Okamura-kun looks love-struck to me, if anything. Even so, I dared to inspire them. That's the thing about humans. You've only truly lost when your spirit is broken.
まだ動けるのはどれだけだ。遠慮しなくていい。きついやつは休め。恥じることはない。みんな頑張った。本当によく頑張った。
前原さん、
今疲れ切ってるみんなにもう一度立ち上がれというのはそれは分かってる。それに腰を上げたところで動くことすらきついと思う。それも分かってる。だがあえて言わせてくれみんな。俺は
I knelt down on the spot and spoke with all my heart, hoping to encourage them.
俺はみんなと部活がしたい。だからみんな俺に力をたった一度でいいから力を貸してくれ。認めさせたいんだあいつらに。ここまで頑張ったみんなの気持ちを思いをそして心意気をこのままじゃ終われない。終わらせたくない。だからほんのちょっとでいい。俺を信じてくれ。そしてあと1回だけ勝利を信じる気持ちを奮い起こしてくれ。考えるんだ。相手はほんのちょっとたった数年だけ先に生まれただけの頭も体もそんなに違いがないやつだろ。
It certainly can be, depending on the context.
みんなミオンやサドコと勉強で勝負して負けてばかりか。そうじゃないだろ。
私
カリフラワーとブロッコリーの違いわかるもん。
Well, hey, at least you're ahead of Sadako on that department. Yes, one of the downtrodden girls raised her head and spoke up. I gave her a gentle yet powerful pat on the shoulder and said, "That's right."
しかも相手は4人。いや、今は1人減って3人だ。そしてそのうちの1人はハンター役で缶のそばから動けない。だから注意すべきはたった2人。わかるか、富田君、岡村君。君たち2人と同数なんだ。
でも竜宮さん相手だと。
そうだ、確かにレナは脅威だ。だから俺がレナを食い止める。
Hey, did it before.
そうすれば君たちが戦う相手はサドゴ1人。
そうか。
Even though those two were slowly losing their energy, their faces brightened up after hearing that. And at the same time, the younger students on the ground slowly began to raise their heads and look up at me. Alright, one more time.
いいかみんな、走る必要はもうない。俺と富田君、岡村君が猟犬役の2人を食い止める。だからみんなはただ一つ、缶だけを狙え。ミオンのタッチを恐れるな。相手は2本の手しかないぞ。
This is literally the same fucking strategy I came up with earlier. Distract the hounds and have the rest go for the can.
それじゃあみんな。
I held out my hand. First, Tomoto-kun and Okamura-kun put their hands on top. And then, all of them put their strong little hands together.
これが最後のチャンスだ。みんな、行くぞ。最終決戦だ。
Yeah, seriously, this is simple divide and conquer tactics. Incredible. I couldn't believe what I was seeing.
まさか。
All the younger students were in poor spirits just a moment ago. They wouldn't outright say it, but they had lost the energy to even stand from the fatigue and helplessness. They thought even if they fought, they had no chance of winning. They were halfway, maybe even completely ready to give up. But despite that, after just a few words from Keiichi, they were getting on their feet again and wiping the dirt from their shorts, with the same level of strength they had from the very beginning. Maybe even stronger. To tell the truth, even I thought they looked pathetic. They hit a wall and began to mope. Still, they didn't want to accept defeat. They didn't want to accept that reality, so they turned their heads down and waited for someone to sympathize with them. Such a sycophantic attitude. Perhaps that's not the case, but I couldn't see it any other way. I loathed watching Neon behave so haughtily, but honestly, watching the younger students was just as tedious. So, I simply turned my gaze inward. I stopped thinking and wanted to just stand still waiting for time to pass. But Keiichi wasn't like that. He believed in their potential and stood up to his friends. He chose to reach a hand out to them. It wasn't the grace of a higher being. It wasn't cheap sympathy. It was kind, but strong encouragement from deep in his heart. So, everyone was able to get up again. They weren't forced into it. They did it of their own volition. They regained the will to fight.
やっぱりそれでこそ圭一なのです。
A magician of words and of rousing your spirit. That never changes. No matter the time, no matter the place, Keiichi never changes. He's like war in that respect. His strong convictions spin around and go out of control, which certainly can lead to tragedy. Still, Keiichi continued fighting fate until the very end. And because because of his strength. The people around him simply can't ignore him. Deep down, I believe that.
ケイチ、あなたなら見せてくれますですか？不愉快な時間を打ち破るちっぽけな奇跡を。
Right before my eyes, Keiichi was holding the can in kickoff position. As I looked onward, surprisingly enough, I could feel my heart getting lighter.
それじゃあ行くぜ。てーい。
A cool sound rang out as the empty can danced through the air. The younger students dashed to the back of the school building while Reina and Sadako chased after the can.
ちょっと待て、レナ、佐藤。
なんですの？
缶を取ってからのカウントダウンは省略していい。その代わりこの問題を解いてから缶を取りに行け。
何かな
問題だ。1分間に2つに分裂する細菌がある。これを瓶に詰めると1時間でいっぱいになる。さてこの細菌を瓶に2つ入れたら何分で瓶いっぱいになるか。
Half an hour?
それはなんですの？その奇怪な問題は。
ケイちゃん、いつもの引っ掛けた謎々だね。残念だけどおじさんは引っかからないよ。正解はシンプルに考えて1時間の半分の30分。
残念、不正解だ。
Well, dang, I'm just stupid today. And apparently so is Mion.
というわけでその問題が解けるまで缶を取りに行くなよ。
どうして？2つに増やしたんだから時間も半分でしょ。
それじゃあリカちゃん、正解が言えるまでちゃんと見張っておいてくれよ。
了解なのです。ミパー。
Rika-chan waved her hand with a weird-looking smile on her face. Incidentally, Rika-chan was the only person I told the correct answer.
1時間は60分だから2倍の速さになれば30分だよね。
That's what I thought too, but apparently that's incorrect.
レナ、数学は苦手なんだよ。ちょっとリカ、笑ってないでヒントだけでも教えてくださいませ。
Wait a minute. It would take the bacteria reproduces asexually and reproduces asexually. You stick one in the can, it eventually fills the whole thing up in an hour starting by itself. So okay. When you start with 2 and they reproduce, you start with 4, so maybe the answer is probably actually a fourth of that. It would probably be like 15 to 20 minutes, give or take, maybe. I'm not sure I can really explain my logic behind it. I'm just guesstimating here based on the multiplication factor of the number of bacteria from the start.
審判は公正なのです。ミパー。
Mion and the others were still busy discussing it behind me. This may give us even more time than the 100 count normally would. I dashed to the back of the school building, where Tomota-kun and Okamura-kun were waiting.
前原さん、準備 OK です。女子は全員教室に。男子の残りは校舎の反対側に行きました。
When did they have time to plan this out?
よし、ここは時間が勝負だ。2人とも仕掛けは万全か？
バッチリです。
The two of them smiled at the same time and flashed me a thumbs up. After seeing that, I grabbed their hands and whispered.
よし、俺たちは今からどうした？俺のことは前原じゃなくケイチと呼べ。
はい、ケイチさん。 僕のことも大輝でお願いします。僕もスグルで。ケイチさん、あなたに全て託します。
The two of them firmly placed their hands on mine. I put my other hand on top and shouted, "Yeah!" I could see me on the others from the far side of the school building. They must have finally solved it, because Reina was carrying the can back to the circle. It seems like smoke was about to come blowing out of Reina's head. And Sadako was being Sadako. Her face was so bright red I could see it clearly from here. And Mion seemed to be laughing, but her eyes were constantly pointing straight in this direction. She must be certain I'm lurking back here, and constantly on watch. Now, let the game begin! Club members!
Zengun.
I slowly raised my hand, and then vigorously shouted and pointed forward.
Totsugeki!
With that cry, all our separate teams rushed toward the can at once. Reina and Sadako quickly moved in to intercept. Reina moved toward the corpse that had approached earlier, and began her attack.
来たね来たね一斉に来ても無駄無駄無駄
Pow, pow, pow. The detached corpse was overwhelmed by the unstoppable advance. While they groaned, Saka moved in behind them to read their numbers.
一斉攻撃とはゲーのない
どうしたのサトコ？早く数字を。
475
Apparently there is a technique to a mass attack.
じゃなかったに違うのです向こうなのです
Rika-chan formed an X in front of her chest with her arms. Looking on, Sako had gotten impatient and mistakenly read several people's numbers. Rika-chan declared her answers invalid.
どうしたのさとこちゃんちゃんと読み上げなきゃダメだよだって背番号が逆さまなんですのよ
Oh! Well, I guess there was nothing mentioned in the beginning about having your numbers right side up, huh? Yes, the reason for buying that extra time earlier was so that we could invert everyone's player numbers.
ケイちゃん、やってくれたね。審判。
はは。背番号のつける向きは指示なかったし。だよな、リカちゃん。
OK ですノージャッジなのですよ
Suck it! Rika-chan had a huge smile on her face as her arms formed a circle overhead. Meanwhile, a few of the troops who had escaped Sadako's initial shootout were on the move again, resuming the attack.
レイナさんダメダメここから先は一歩も通さない
Pow, pow, pow. The detached corpse was once again defeated by Reina's godlike speed. What's more, this time she used a combination technique with a twist to get them to fall face down rather than on their backs?
レイナさんナイス577-269-174でございますわ
From Sako's perspective, the kids who fell over were practically doing a handstand. As a result, the inverted numbers were returned to their original orientation, making them far easier to read.
さすがケイチくん面白い作戦だよほんのちょっとだけ焦っちゃったかな所詮は付け焼き場の朝知恵でございますわ
After eliminating the detached corpse, Reina and Sadako immediately moved in, in front of the main squad. Then they tried to wrap around to the left and right to steal a glance at our backs. Of course, that was keeping in mind Mion's field of view as the hunter. In other words, we needed to engage in a dogfight against 2 enemy fighters while avoiding their long-range sniper fire.
レナ、お前は俺が相手だぜ。
残念だけど、今のレナにはケイイチ君だって相手じゃないよ。一歩でも間合いに入ったらケイイチ君だって容赦しないからね。
おうよ上等。大輝、スグル、サトコは頼んだ。
了解です。任せてください。
They dodged sideways as they said that to lure Sadako away from me. They were able to skillfully switch directions, as expected of members of the baseball club. Sadako quickly took that chance to move behind them. However, they quickly stood back to conceal one another's numbers.
卑怯ですわ。
No, that's just smart thinking.
いいか？隠し方は特に決めてませんです。ノージャッジなのです。
After Rika-chan's rejection, Sadako had no choice but to jump out and chase them. However, thanks to the demanding nature of that, it would leave the area near the can more exposed.
レナさん、2人を足止めして。わかった。今行く。
おっと、お前の相手は俺じゃないのか？
Reina stopped for a moment and watched as I began to dash toward the can. Then she finally settled on me as a target and turned toward me with an expressionless look, devoid of her earlier smile.
ケイイチ君、邪魔するとレナもちょっとだけ怒るよ。
そいつは面白いな。怒ったレナもプリチーだから目に焼き付けておきたいぜ。
It's not green. It's far scarier than that.
そう。選んだね。それじゃ、行くよ。
Reina's eyes sharpened and turned deep red. It felt like there was an intense pressure on my legs. No, my entire body was frozen. I couldn't move. The light in her eyes was strong enough to pin an enemy down. And then...
What the?
I reflexively stepped back to dodge an arm that came a sheet's paper width away from reaching my chest and side. When I looked down the neckline of my gym shirt, I noticed one of the 2 buttons was missing.
さすがだね。もらったと思ったのに。
She's even got the doll eyes of unhappiness going on. We're in trouble.
でも次は？
Reina advanced forward to close the gap. I was still so overwhelmed by the pressure that I was about to be crushed, but somehow I managed to endure it. And then, as I watched Reina, I realized it was the sharpness of her gaze that threw me off. Then I widened my field of view around Reina so that I could see her movements and signs. And once I did, I could see that Reina was breathing heavily and drooping her shoulders. Just like me. That's it. Her eyes. As long as I don't look in her in the eyes, I can still clearly see her movements. Of course, I didn't let her pick up on my mental instability. I maintained my wider field of focus and assumed a resolute posture. Reina must be feeling just as anxious as me. The longer this goes on, the more likely our movements are to open gaps, so we have to be vigilant of attacks of opportunity. So in that case, the most optimal strategy is to carefully study your opponent and be prepared to launch a counterattack. Whoever moves first will be at a disadvantage. However, unlike me, Reina must feel pressured for time since she also needs to go help Sadako deal with Daiki and Suguru. And that impatience will force her to launch a brute force attack. Which is, of course, a perfect opportunity for me! A moment later, I felt Reina moving in to grab my left sleeve, so I stepped back and to the right to dodge. Then I hooked my leg around Lena's left leg, which had just stepped past me, and lightly pushed on Reina's shoulder to take advantage of her momentum. Apparently unable to predict that attack, Reina stumbled down and landed on her butt. I quickly rushed in to help her before remembering our current situation and came to a stop. There's time to be a gentleman later, Keiichi.
ごめん。
I am awfully clever, yes.
まさか転ぶとは思わなかった。
ああ、ケイちゃんひどいね。こりゃ罰ゲームは相当覚悟してもらわないとね。
あ、いや、
Mion was supposed to be protecting the can, so when I understood the implication for her being over here, I quickly turned around. Beyond Mion's shoulders, I could see Daiki and Suguru suddenly kneeling on the ground.
さて、なかなか楽しませてもらったけどね。そろそろゲーム終了といきましょうか。
さすがケイイチさんですが、いかんせん駒不足でしたわね。
Sako was also heading toward me with a fearless smile on her face. Then I noticed that Reina had gotten up and was moving behind me, trying to cut off my retreat. If things keep up like this, one of them will be able to see my number, and the other will get me out. If they can make it back to the can, it'll be game over.
いいのかよ、ミオ。陣地を無人にして。まだ兵隊は残っているはずだぜ。
おじさんを甘く見ないでよ。残りの女の子たちはもう走る元気もないって、さっきまでの戦いとキックオフの時に見て確認済みさ。
Oh yeah, the girls should be hiding in the classroom still, yeah? Are they gonna come out? Are they gonna come out for a surprise attack sometime soon, Keiichi? I see. So Mion was able to foresee that much.
いやー、それにしてもさっきのクイズは参ったね。しばらく意味が分かんなくて、ずいぶん時間をロスしちゃったよ。まさか最初の1分、1つが2つに分かれるところだけが省略されて、正解は59分なんてさ。
The answer is 59 minutes?
ちなみに聞いておこう。
Someone's gonna have to explain this shit to me because I'm confused as to why it literally only results in a minute difference.
誰がわかった？
レナだよ。でもみーちゃんは最初に説明してもしばらく理解できなかったみたいだけどね。
I see. It's Mion, all right.
さて、それじゃあ覚悟はいいかな。ついでに罰ゲームも。
ああ。で、あれはいいのか？
え？
あそこにいる艦に向かってる下級生たちは。
またまたご冗談を。さっき言ったでしょ。もう走る元気はあの子たちにないって。
歩く元気はあるみたいだけどな。
As soon as she heard that, Mion turned back and was shocked to see the younger girls. Yes! Our last hidden ball play! There they come. While we drew the attention of our three opponents, the girls recovered their physical strength and launched our strategy of attacking the enemy headquarters as a mobile battalion. There you go! Implementing my strategy. Divide and conquer, distract the hounds, and then when their backs are turned, go after the can. Naturally, it was hard to expect them to run, but I was certain they'd be able to walk after a short rest.
さとこ！
了解ですわ。
Sako quickly turned and rushed to stop the girls' invasion.
しかしケイちゃんも人がいいね。
I don't know. I don't think Sako will be able to hold back the estrogen brigade.
わざわざ奇襲を教えてくれるなんてさ。
そうかな。レナ、あの子たちをよく見てみろ。
When Reina saw the girls toddling forward, she burst. Her nose began to bleed. They changed out of their gym clothes during their downtime and were now dressed in costumes. Their outfits included school swimsuits, maid dresses, waitress attire, and of course, every single one of them was wearing cat ears. Oh, Keiichi, you devious little dog, you. They were squeezing out the last dregs of their physical strength, so they swayed left and right as they walked, like cute little animals. Unable to endure that adorable sight, Reina completely forgot that she was about to corner me and ran off toward the girls. Of course, I wasn't such a good-natured person that I'd let this opportunity go to waste. I didn't bother hiding my back and slipped past Mion, charging toward the can. Mion had abandoned her hunter post to move in behind me. In other words, the enemy base was unattended, and that was my true objective.
Keiichi-san?
Snapped out of cute mode at last, huh, Reina? Sadako noticed me moving, and Reina had finally come back to her senses, so they rushed back to their base. Our speed and distance are roughly equal, so the key that will decide victory in this game is willpower. 10 meters left. 5 meters left. 3 meters left. Oh, you will reach that goal. Then. The dust in the air settled. After diving full force to the ground, I got up and looked onward. The can was still there. F. Sako dove at it with a desperate sliding kick. Reina pulled out all the stops, just to extend a saving hand. My thoughts, no, everyone's thoughts, came to a complete halt after that wholehearted play. I couldn't say anything. My body wouldn't move. And the same applied to Reina and Sadako. And probably Mion behind us, too. Nobody moved a muscle. We just silently stared at the can. I lost? Even after inspiring everyone. I filled them with dreams and anticipation. I put on such a show with my big mouth. But in the end, I... A pitter-patter came from nearby. Rika-chan walked up next to the can and raised her right hand. Then...
勝者
Huh?
ケイチそれと下級生チーム
Right before our eyes, Rika-chan kicked the can herself. As I stood there stunned, she turned to me with a broad smile.
Rika-chan?
おめでとうなのですよケイチあなたの勝ちなのです
あ、いや、けど。
3人以外の誰かが蹴ったら、ケイイチたちの勝ち、とミーも言いました。だから、僕が蹴飛ばしても誰も文句は言えないのです。ですよね、ミー。
She's got you there. Mion made a sour face at that blunder, but it quickly transformed into a bitter smile, and then to a proper smile.
おめでとう、ケイちゃん。あんたの勝ちだよ。
After Rika-chan's declaration and Mion's response, all the boys who were crying out in frustration just a moment ago, including Daiki and Suguru, and the girls who were sitting on the ground, unable to keep standing, all at once, they let out a jubilant sound, full of muddy sweat and warm tears. And they rushed toward me, each raising their voices to share their joy. Just then, I heard a distant chime signaling the end of class. It seemed louder than usual, like it was celebrating our victory. Well, I'll be damned! I guess this time around the status quo isn't God. God has forsaken us! Oh no!
それでは約束通り
And I'm
我が部活への全員入部をここに宣言し了承する
And hey, Tanyu is technically the local god around these parts, and she's not around for some inexplicable reason, so I mean, I'm not exactly wrong in that statement, am I? That God has forsaken us. Dog God has forsaken us. Alright. Oh. Right after Mion's proclamation, a thunderous cry and loud applause resounded all at once.
おめでとうみんな。本当にすっごく頑張ったよ。ここまで頑張るとは正直恐れ入りましたわ。皆さんのこと心から歓迎させてもらいますわ。みんなとってもファイトさんなのです。我が部にようこそなのですよ。
Reina, Sadako, and even Rika-chan had gained their vitality, and they all welcomed our new members with wholehearted smiles. There was a strange sense of unity in all our hearts that only those who truly fought hard could share.
それにしても大丈夫なのか？この後の授業。
ああ、大丈夫大丈夫。そのためのこれなんだからさ。
Had she said that, Mion held up the can that we had been using in our game until a moment ago. I see. So she bribed Cheese Sensei with that curry.
ああ、静粛に静粛に
You cannot silence me. I am unsilenceable.
実はまだこれだけじゃないんだよね。だから静粛に。
Everyone followed Mion's command in unison. After everyone calmed down, Mion cleared out her throat and took a look at everyone, then took a breath and spoke up.
長らくこの学校のクラス委員長を務めさせていただきました。私、園崎ミオンですが、今日限りに委員長の座を引退したいと思います。
Everyone cried out in shock. That's right. Mion is our leader. Our leader is Mion. That fact was synonymous with the school itself. And yet, Mion wanted to step down as class representative?
ミオン、何考えてんだよ。冗談だったらタチが悪すぎるぞ。
いや、冗談でもなく本気も本気なんだけど。
本気だったらなお悪いわ。いくら新入部員の受け入れに反対してたからって、そんなことで誰もお前のことを悪く思ったりしない。だから。
ケイちゃん、ちょっと黙って最後まで聞いて。お願い。
Mion waited for the restless younger students to calm down, then continued.
そろそろね。私も受験生だしさ。いろいろと忙しくもなるし、卒業してこの学校出た後のことも考えなきゃいけない。だから、後任を誰にするかって、今年の春からずっと考えていたんだ。
Keiichi, naturally.
みーちゃん。
でも、委員長ってのは責任もあるし、仕事もある。何より、クラスのみんなを引っ張っていけるリーダーシップがなきゃ、私みたいにただの雑用係になっちゃうからさ。任せる相手が見つからなくて、結構悩んだ。
But then, Mion raised her head. Huh? Something about her was strange. Mion looked brighter, more radiant than usual, and I thought it was pretty cute.
ケイちゃんがひなみ沢に引っ越してきた時、なんとなく感じたんだ。面白いし、行動力はあるし、それに、ものすごくみんなに優しいやつだなって。そんなケイちゃんだから、いい委員長になってくれると思うし、みんなもついていけると思う。だから、
Then, Mion looked at me. Her eyes were glistening, and she seemed to be taking a deep breath. But her words had no hint of her usual trickery.
ケイちゃん、私は、あんたに委員長、やってもらいたい。
Called it!
私の後、みんなを任せたい。
ミオン。
大丈夫。あんたなら、みんなのこと任せられる。正しいことを強い思いで貫き通して、たとえ苦しい状況でも、みんなを励まして勇気づけてくれる。そんなケイちゃんだから、きっとみんなをまとめていけるし、私も、ケイちゃんなら多分これからもずっと信じられると思うんだ。
それじゃあミオン、最初から？
Mion smiled at my question. When I turned to look around, Reina and Sadako were making the same face. When she tried to push younger students out like that, it was all for the sake of learning about me?
なんか、試されてたみたいだな。
回りくどいことをしたことは謝るよ。でも、知りたかったんだ。ケイちゃんが本当に、この役目を引き受けてくれるかどうかってね。
After hearing that explanation, there was no longer any reason to feel uncomfortable. In fact, I felt a little happy.
引き受けてくれる？ケイちゃん。
俺は。
Just then, I noticed that all the classmates who were silently listening to Mion were now staring at me. They were all smiling, and I could feel their warmth. I turned to Reina.
ケイチくん、頑張って。
I turned to Sadako.
ケイチさんならきっと大丈夫ですわ。
And then Rika-chan.
ケイチ。
But instead of her usual fight-on line of dialogue,
ケイチしかいないと思うのですよ。
on that encouragement, I...
みんな、俺についてこれるか
They all cheered in unison, and then they broke out into applause.
おめでとう前原くん。
Hey there, Chi.
頑張れよ。君ならできる。
Hey there, Principal. Then I noticed that Chi Sensei and the principal had come out of the school building to give me their blessing with smiles on their faces. What is this? This feeling of satisfaction. It feels better than getting a good score on a test. Feels better than winning in club activities and games. I am king, baby! I'm filled with happiness and satisfaction. It feels like something hot is welling up deep in my chest. Well, I'm sure it's not heartburn. The sky had turned red. Before I realized it, the sun had already gone down, dyeing the school yard and the school building in the hue of sunset. The familiar lonely voice of the Higurashi cried out. It blended together with everyone's voices and warm thoughts, and sounded like they were congratulating me. The next day, ever since the morning, the laughter never stopped.
そうですか。
Hey there, brain doc.
ずいぶん白熱した大激闘だったみたいですね。
もう最高に盛り上がったのでございますわ。最後の圭一さんの特攻は私たちの部活の歴史に残る名場面でしたのよ。
いやいや残念。ぜひとも実際に見てみたかったものですよ。話を聞いているだけでも楽しそうな雰囲気が伝わってくるようですから。
Irie listened to Sadako's story with a smile on his face, while jotting diagnostic information down on a medical chart. Sadako was holding her head high and making exaggerated gestures while joyously telling the story. It seems like she'd still be excited about it days from now.
しかし、確か前原さんはひなみ沢に引っ越してきて、そんなに日が経っていませんよね。それでミオンさんの後任で委員長とは、結構荷が重くありませんか？
最初は私もレナさんもそう考えていましたわ。もう少しひなみ沢の生活に慣れてからでも遅くないのではございませんのって。でもこの前の缶蹴り勝負で確信いたしましたの。圭一さんはきっと面白い委員長さんになってくださいますわよ。
On that point, I secretly agreed. I'm sure in many ways, a club centered around Keiichi will be one of the greatest things in this village. Well, you're right about that. After all, even our usual penalty games make for a lively story among the villagers. Keiichi can't hear that I've been skipping school, so that fact needs to remain a secret.
なるほど。さとこちゃんがそこまで言うなら、私の心配するところではありませんね。ぜひ今度の試合でも我がひなみ沢ファイターズの助っ人として大暴れしてもらいたいもんですよ。
またゴルフクラブを持って殴り込みに来るのですよ。あの時は最高に笑いましたわ。
Sako let out a huge booming laugh while thinking back on that lovely spectacle. Then, we talked about Keiichi's one-on-one battle with that elite high school level pitcher, and Sadako's home run right afterwards. Irie seemed to be getting excited. Witnessing that spectacle gave me a warm feeling too. It was delightful. Anyway, these past 2 weeks, nearly everything we've talked about has been related to Keiichi. I wonder if Sadako has noticed. Whenever I search for something bright to cheer me up when I'm feeling down, Keiichi is always at the center of it. But on top of that, Sadako herself seemed quite fond of Keiichi. And as proof of that, Sadako always seemed to have a delightful smile on her face, devoid of any gloom or shadow, anytime we talked about Keiichi.
しかしそれにしてもリカさんは策士ですね。最後の最後に寝返るとは。
寝返るとは人聞きが悪いのです。勝ち馬に乗ったと言ってほしいのです。
Fuck you, Rika. I'm not a horse. I'm a dragon!
さすがはリカさん。正気を見事に読んだわけですか。
まったくリカには油断も隙もありませんわ。まさかあんな場面でリカに裏切られるとは予想外でしたもの。今度からはリカの動きにも要注意でございましてよ。
あらあら、黄金コンビ解消？
And here is everybody's favorite bundle of joy and happiness herself. How you doing, Sergeant?
それは大変だわ。次からはさとこちゃんが罰ゲームの常連になっちゃうかしら。
みー、僕がフォローしないさとこは石のたぬきさんなのですよ。なんですって？意味はわかりませんが、聞き捨てなりませんわ。みぱー。
I shifted my upper body to evade Sadako's reaching hand. Sadako tried to get up from the chair in frustration, but Irie stopped her with a bitter smile on his face.
はいはい。さとこちゃんの診察はまだですよ。最後に注射が残ってますからね。
注射。そうでございましたわ。
Upon hearing that, Sadako quickly became as meek as a lamb. Then, Takano stepped beside her and sterilized Sadako's arm with alcohol, while giving Irie a shifty glare. An unpleasant feeling began to well up as I looked at the mirror on the white wall of the exam room. Gazing at my reflection, I could immediately tell how stiff I looked. Sadako was stiff and tense, but Takano comforted her with a cheerful smile. However, now that I could see the darkness lurking behind that smile, it sent a chill coursing through my entire body. That's no good, Rika Frude. Calm down. Act more calm and natural. Don't get so nervous. So far, things are still alright. So far, things are still.
はい。終わりましたよ。
あっという間でしたわね。
When I heard that, I looked back towards Sadako. Irie was already getting up to go wash his hands, and Takano was administering Sadako with post-injection disinfectant.
すっかり注射にも慣れたみたいね。以前の大騒ぎが嘘みたいだわ。
大騒ぎというほど騒いではいませんわ。ちょっと暴れたことはありますけどね。
Ah, so you used to be a screamer when it came to shots, huh?
入江の陣中に聖剣好きしておいて、ちょっと奥ゆかしいのです。
Dang! All I did was just scream my lungs out when I was a kid. But you, Sadako, you're hardcore.
たまたま手を振り回したら当たっただけですわ。
Sadako desperately tried to defend herself, but to hit that clean would have been impossible without deliberate aim. Incidentally, she hit him in the weak spot between the nose and mouth. Irie let out a gwa scream like some kind of manga character when she hit him, and he spent a little while just staring absent-mindedly.
そうそう。私も腕を引っかかれたわね。
Yeah, well, you deserved the scratch, milady.
おかげで二の腕にミミズバレができちゃって大変だったのよ。
ごめんなさいと後でちゃんと謝りましたわ。高野さんはしおさんと同じぐらいしつこいお方ですわね。
ごめんなさい。あんまりムキになるさとこちゃんが可愛いからついね。
Takano gently stroked Sadako's head after saying that. Sadako uttered a faintly sulking moo, but didn't fight it. For the time being, it feels like a nice friendly atmosphere. Sadako doesn't seem to be in any danger, so let's let them keep getting along.
入江は覚えていますか？あの時のこと。
もちろん。あの時のパンチが私のハートをキューンと打ち抜いたのですよ。
And what are these incredible feelings, Irie? If you don't mind my asking.
今思い出しても心がときめきますね。
Actually, don't answer. I think I got a good idea.
もう少し本気で殴ってもよかったようですわ。
あらさとこちゃん、恋だって認めたわね。
いいんです。恋とはすなわち恋。そして愛情の証。
You know she's probably less than half your age, right, Doctor?
そして私の心もバッチコーイってな感じにウェルカムですよ。
Yeah, I don't think he know. I don't think he's consciously aware of it right now. Somebody get the straitjacket. As he said that, Irie wiggled his hips and struck a pose, like some kind of nonsense dance. It was frankly unpleasant, but he himself seemed completely oblivious to that, which made it even worse.
そうです。あれはまさに神が下された典型とも言うべき衝撃。そして感動。
Well, Rika may be the oldest person in the room here, but she's of very short stature. So Takano, you're the only other adult in the room. Do your duty. Save the children. Save the small people.
この入江京介、はっきりと悟ったのです。私の理想とも言うべきメイドにふさわしいのはこの子しかいないと。そう、これは神から下された私の使命。聡子ちゃんメイド化計画こそまさにノブレス・オブ・リッジなのです。
There was no opening to interrupt, and I didn't want to step forward either.
にしてもまあご自分のキテレツしちゃらかな趣味をあそこまで熱く熱く語れますわね。
ほらよく言うでしょ、天才と何かは紙一重だって。
私はむしろこれまで問題が起きなかったことに神の祝福を信じたいですわ。
Both of them are terrible, but I did secretly agree on that. And then I remembered that I couldn't waste the entire day on idle chatter.
さとこ、早く検査を終えないと遅れてしまうのですよ。
I pointed to the clock on the wall as I said that. We're planning to celebrate Keiichi becoming the class representative by having a barbecue party at the Furuti Shrine Grounds today. Ooh, barbecue! That's why we're still wearing our school uniforms on a Sunday. But if this idle banter continues, we'll miss our scheduled meeting time.
そうでございましたわ。それでは高野さん、お願いしてもよろしいかしら？
はいはい、それじゃあ行きましょう。
For a time being, we decided to move quickly to meet our schedule, and watched Irie as he made some heroic pose looking up toward the sky. Sadako headed to the desk in the back of the exam room of Takano. I poured myself a glass of tea from the teapot on the nearby desk and took a sip, while waiting a little while longer. At the desk in the back, Sadako was answering Takano's questions one by one. At first glance, it might look like some kind of quiz game, but it's actually an important test to measure the progression of the disease. As I watched, the mixed feelings that nagged at me earlier suddenly came back to me. I don't understand. No matter how much I think about it, I don't understand. Why? Why is Takano our Mio Takano, commander of the Mountain Dogs, the Special Forces unit keeping watch over me, and the true culprit who killed me. Simmering black emotions came back to me when I thought of back then. I wanted to release the murderous rage pulling in the bottom of my chest. Suddenly, I looked at the desk. The syringe that was just administered to Sadako was laying on the silver tray, shining brightly. Right there, right now, I could quietly approach Takano. Don't do it. If I grabbed the syringe from this desk, took aim while she was defenseless, and plunged it into her neck to send air into her blood vessels, then I'm sure...
Baka.
I shook my head to stave off those brief dark thoughts. No matter how gentle she acts, Takano is the commander of the mountain dogs. A soldier. Even if I took her by surprise, she should be able to easily repel an attack from a child. Since I'm unarmed, she'd be a fair match for me. At any rate, I'd just be speeding up the hands of the clock of hell approaching the day of my death. Plus, why did Takano want to kill me in the first place? And what will happen to Hinamizawa after I die? I need to know at least that much. So until then, I need to refrain from doing anything hasty. Unfortunately.
Rika さん
み、
大丈夫ですか？なんだかまだ元気がないようですが。
When I turned back and finally returned to this world, I found Irie staring at me with an anxious expression.
み、平気なのです。ただの夏風邪だと思うのですよ。
それならいいんですが。何か薬を出しましょうか？
薬は必要ないのです。よく寝てよく食べていれば、もうすぐ治るはずなのです。
そうですか。わかりました。もし何か異常があったら、ちゃんと言ってくださいね。できる限り力になりますから。
大丈夫なのです。入江たちの研究には影響がありませんから、心配には及ばないのです。
あ、そうですか。
A mixed expression suddenly floated to Irie's face, and he turned his gaze downward. I immediately regretted saying that. I had inadvertently trampled on Irie's goodwill. Irie is using Sadako and me as test subjects to research the pathogens prevalent in Hinamizawa. In other words, we're his guinea pigs. But Irie is aware that the medication trials, blood sample collection, and medical interviews being conducted on us are inhumane. And I realize how ashamed he is of that. What's more, his fondness for Sadako and guilt over her treatment are so strong and earnest that I can never picture him as some selfish researcher. His motivation is sad and reciprocal, but still, it doesn't feel right to consider it some casual courtesy. I submissively reflected on my carelessness.
ごめんなさいなのです。意地悪な言い方をしてしまいました。
え？ああ、いえ、大丈夫ですよ。耳の痛いところではありますが、確かに私たちはあなたたち二人に相当無理をさせている。申し訳ないことです。
Irie removed his glasses and wiped the fog from them as he said that. His expression looked pained, and I felt deeply sorry.
そのおかげで生活ができていますから、別に平気なのです。それよりも、研究の方はどんな感じに進んでいるのですか？
研究の成果は、お二人のご協力のおかげで確かに上がっています。でも具体的な対策にまではまだたどり着けていない。あと一息なんですが、どれも決め手に欠けて満足には程遠いのが現状です。
では、聡子の病気は？
現在は安定してレベル3マイナスを保っている小康状態です。それでも完治には程遠いレベルです。それに不測の事態が起きてしまうと再度発病しても不思議ではない。悔しいですよ。せめてあと少し時間と資金が許されるなら、あと3年という期間内で末期症状からの回復にどこまで迫れるか。
入江はよくやってくれているのです。聡子も僕もとても感謝してるのですよ。
すみません。そう言ってもらえると少しは救われます。
Irie donned a smile as he said that, finally seeming relieved. Irie mentioned once before that the research into Hinamizawa syndrome would be concluded 3 years from now. After that, this clinic will be converted to a normal private medical facility, and all the large-scale equipment will be transferred to a bigger hospital in Gogura.
入江、あなたは3年経った後はどうするつもりですか？
偶然治療薬を発見できたおかげで、いくつかの医療施設からお招きをいただきました。
The therapeutic drug that Lowell Inc. is using, yeah?
正直に言って、ここに来た時は、それが私の望みではあったんですが、今は、できれば。
Irie gently squinted his eyes while looking at Sadako, who was still receiving her medical examination. But, when he noticed my gaze, he suddenly turned back to me with an embarrassed smile on his face.
それはともかく、夏風邪といっても、決してバカにはできませんから。あまり冷たいものを取りすぎないよう、食生活には注意してくださいね。
わかりましたのです。でも、聡子に任せると、楽だからといって、そうめんになることが多いのですよ。
聞こえてましたよ、リカ。そうめんにしたのは、食欲がないってあなたが言うからでございましょうが。
こらこら、さとこちゃん。時間も計ってるんだから、こっちに集中して。
After that scolding from Tanako, Sadako begrudging swiveled. I think you wanted to say begrudgingly, swiveled her chair back toward her. Apparently, they were conducting psychological tests over there using pictures.
さとこちゃんも心配していましたよ。内緒ですが、夏風邪によく効く薬はないか、食べ物はどんなものがいいのか。
Sadako is a true friend. My best friend!
なんて毎日買い物帰りに立ち寄っていましたから。
知らなかったのです。
優しい子です、さとこちゃんは。だからこそ、私はこの病気の解明のために、自分の持つすべてを捧げて、彼女を救いたい。そのためなら。
ありがとうなのです。
I spoke sincerely to Irie. And again, I was convinced he was an honest researcher with no intention to do harm. So, this plan is Takano acting alone. If so, what is her intention?
はい、もしもし、入江です。
東京から凱旋です。そちらへ回します。
I could hear a loud voice coming in through the receiver. Right, I guess it's already time.
ああ、リサさんですね。電話は所長室で取りますから、そっちへ回してください。
Irie gave that answer, then hung up the receiver. Then I heard another phone ring off in the distance.
リカさん、すみません。東京からの電話なので、ちょっと失礼します。
いってらっしゃいなのです。ニパー。
Irie exited the exam room and headed to the director's office. When I looked back at Sadako, she was still in the middle of her screening.
Takano?
For a second, I thought that said screaming. I'm like, why is she screaming?
ちょっとお外の空気を吸ってきてもいいですか？
ええ、構わないわよ。こちらはもう少し時間がかかりそうだから。
リカ、先に行くのはなしでございますわよ。
Don't leave your best friend behind, Rika. Sadako looked out from the picture book she had been studying to glare at me. Sheesh, seems like my credibility has considerably fallen since my earlier betrayal. You're deeply in my debt, Keiichi. Duly noted.
大丈夫なのですよ。お日様に当たって元気をもらってくるだけなのです。
いつからリカはひまわりになったんですの？ま、了解ですわ。私もとっととこのテストを終わらせて呼びに行きますから待って。
はいはい。それじゃあ頑張りましょうね、さとこちゃん。それじゃあ次は。
I made my way out of the exam room without even listening to Takano finish. Even though it was still morning, the sunlight was so intense that had blinded me the moment I stepped outside. And the weather was scorching today, too. The sky was a deep navy blue, with some small fluffy clouds. I could hear the loud cries of the cicadas coming from the trees all around me. I took a seat on the shaded portion of the stone steps in front of the entrance, while wiping the sweat from my forehead.
前原委員長今日のパーティーはきっと大盛り上がりなのですよ。
I thought back as I whispered that to myself, but I couldn't remember even a single world where Keiichi became the class rep. And this was my first time in a world without Hanyu. That alone was enough to make it feel like a completely unprecedented experience. But on top of that, the human relations in this world have changed slightly compared to before. For example, Keiichi has become very well known and is actively taking on leadership duties. Also, Shion has a very close relationship with Sadako, and she's maintaining good relations with the club members. It was also a bit of a surprise that the classmates and other villagers had accepted Keiichi and thought so favorably of him. After everything that's happened up until now, it was enough to make me feel a little like a stranger here. Come to think of it, that reminds me of what Shion said in the nurse's office.
信じるのは難しいけど、信じなきゃ始まらないって誰かが言っていた気がします。
Those words brought back memories. That's something Keiichi said in a previous world while trying to rescue Sadako from Tepe. Shion was getting out of control and desperately wanted to help Sadako, but when she heard that, she completely stopped thinking of murder.
殺されたって俺はここをどかねえぞ。お前を生かせればシオンのいない世界になる。
Wait, you're not referencing that one other arc right now, are you?
その世界ではいなくなったお前のことをずっと思って毎日うつむいている聡子がいるんだ。俺たちがどうやって慰めてもその場だけは元気そうにするがすぐにまたうつむいてしまう。そんな悲しい世界があるんだ。俺は聡子にそんな悲しい世界を見せたくない。俺たちが描く世界は昨日までがそうだったようにみんなで楽しく過ごして暴れて遊べるあの世界だ。もちろんおじの野郎なんかに二度と聡子を脅かさせるような真似をさせない。それがどういう方法なのか今この場では確かに思いついていない。でもそれは絶対に思いつく。絶対だ。だから俺を信じろ。
That happened in a previous world, but it's possible that Keiichi and the others were able to carry those memories and past experiences to this one, like me. And then I thought it over. Were these changes good or bad for me?
それこそ考えても仕方ないのですが。
I suddenly laughed at my foolish question. For the time being, I tried to sort out my situation by evaluating the advantages and disadvantages of this world that was so unlike anything I'd experienced so far. First, the main advantage. I know the identity of the enemy aiming to take my life. Until now, I always had to be careful of my actions to avoid being trampled upon. So for the first time, I had the option to be proactive. Depending on my actions, I may be able to steer this world to my will. And now, the main disadvantage. Needless to say, it's that Hanyu isn't here. Honestly, when she was here, she was always so talkative and annoying. But now that she's gone, I'm unable to consult with her about the future. It's a feeling I've never tasted before. You don't know how much you miss something until it's gone. And I'm afraid that this may be the final world. Those two concerns have constantly been by my side. And that's what brought me here. But even though the objective and the enemy have been made clear, the fact that this is a cruel game where not even a single failure is allowed has forced me to think carefully about how to best confront them. In other words, it's like a game of blackjack. If you pull a card and your total exceeds 21, you bust. And even if you want to compete with safe numbers, if your opponent's numbers exceed yours, you have to keep going until you reach that point. And what's worse, the game can be decided by a score of 21. In other words, there's no clear standard for judging your relative offensive or defensive capabilities. So even though I have succeeded in retaining those memories, I haven't actually increased my odds of success. Whether I sit down and wait for fate to arrive, or step forward to make my own destiny, the risk is still the same. In fact, there's even a chance that unnecessary movements could heighten the risk.
情けないのです。
I was disgusted with myself every time I thought back on it. Didn't Keiichi and the other club members say that it's worthless to give up without trying? That's right. What would Keiichi do in this situation? For some reason, Keiichi Maebara, the most interesting person in all the times I've experienced thus far, came to mind. I recalled the words he shouted to me once before.
調子に乗るなよ、リカちゃん。運命を読めるなんていい加減なことを言っちゃいけないぜ。男にとって宿命と運命という言葉はもっともっと尊くて熱い意味がこもってるんだ。そんなやすやすと読めるようなもんじゃねえ。さっきリカちゃんはマスターが100億長者ゲームを持ってくることを運命だと言った。偶然であったとしても的中したのだからリカちゃんが正しいと言わざるを得ないさ。でもな、こうも言ったよな。
何ですか？
俺が100億長者ゲームで戦うことも運命だってな。ならその運命とやらを俺がぶち壊してやろうじゃないか。
Keiichi definitely said that back then. And he proved he was right. No, it wasn't just in the past worlds. Even in this world, Keiichi was fighting on behalf of the younger students who wanted to join the club. Never giving up, even in the face of overwhelming disadvantage. I still don't know why I suddenly decided to help him back then. But oddly enough, I don't regret it at all. Keiichi had enough power to make me think so. Can I be as strong as Keiichi? Right now, I have two goals to accomplish. The first is a selfish desire to ensure my own survival, and the other is to reveal the truth behind Takano's conspiracy. My future actions hinge on a decision over which of those I consider more important. In which case, my priority should be... Well, looks like neither of these are an incorrect option, so... But, yeah, I mean, even if I didn't have this to tell me which is a correct answer, which both of them are in this case, I would have chosen uncovering Takano's conspiracy because knowing the nature of my enemy's plan could do wonders to help me formulate a strategy to ensure my own survival by countering said plan. Knowledge is power. That's right. The most important thing is uncovering Takano's conspiracy. Until I know that, I won't be able to understand her reason for slitting my belly open and killing me at such a specific, predetermined time. And without a proper understanding of the motive, I'll have a hard time predicting Takano's actions. Of course, I never even suspected Takano as the culprit until now, so it won't be easy to find the truth. Now I'm pursuing a line of reasoning I've never considered before. I always thought it would be difficult to plan ahead without understanding the enemy's reasoning, but the inverse is just as true. If I understand their motive, I can predict their movements to some extent. It may be excessively optimistic of me to say, but this opportunity did give me a hope for finding an unexpected breakthrough. If only Hanyu was by my side this time. She'd probably chide me for getting carried away with expectations. No, this isn't the time to be thinking that. I'm just feeling a little depressed. I took a deep breath to calm myself down, then thought it over once more. So, what can I do to uncover Takano's conspiracy? That's what I should be thinking about. First of all, the people in Hinamizawa who should know Takano's true identity include me and Irie, as well as Tomitake, who periodically visits here. There is also Okanogi, the commander of the so-called mountain dogs tasked with my safekeeping. But I can exclude him because he reports directly to Takano. Thus, the cooperation of those two will be indispensable in order to investigate Takano. But would they be willing to cooperate with me and share details of Takano's plan? Unfortunately, the answer is currently no. First off, they both completely trust Takano, consider her a comrade. And what's more, Tomitake would never believe that his sweetheart was planning to kill him unless he saw it with his own two eyes. In which case, the two of them would probably laugh even if I told them the truth. Or they think that my condition was worsening and causing me to have baseless paranoia. Word of that would undoubtedly reach Takano's ears. And in the meantime, Takano would continue proceeding with her plan, starting with the killing of Tomitake. And then, she'd move on to murdering me as well.
これは厳しいかもしれませんです。
Understatement. Once I thought about it, I realized how infeasible it seemed, and shook my head. For now, I can take time and incredible evidence to get them. It'll take time and incredible evidence to get them on my side. While they certainly have the most effective means to combat Takano, it'll be difficult to earn their support. Next, I should try to think of someone willing to help me investigate this conspiracy. Of course, the first person to come to mind is Ushi. He's been passionately investigating the serial deaths in Hinamizawa ever since the murder of the damn construction manager. And I've heard that he's planning to retire soon, so he's frantically searching for the culprit. The reason for his passion is something I heard from Ushi himself in a previous world. The construction manager who was killed 5 years ago was like a father to him. And that's why he'll never forgive the criminal who so brutally murdered him. Even if I'm nothing but a child, right now he'd still earnestly listen to me. But the problem is, his actions are too conspicuous. Even in the previous worlds, we ended up losing contact during the middle of the investigation. He probably went too far, and Takano had to deal with him.
せめて赤坂がいればなんて願いすぎでしょうか。
If only we had Super Cop. As I whispered that to myself, I pictured the face of that strong, capable young man. He came back to Hinamizawa in the previous world by chance, but normally he only comes here when it involves a case. If Akasaka were able to team up with Ushi, they'd be even more powerful. But it would be difficult for Ushi to stand up to Takano and her organization on his own. And then, the third group. I thought about having Keiichi and the club members help me find the truth. They're certainly not as powerful as the previous two, but I think the club members are in close to the best condition I've seen among any of the previous worlds. Everyone is united, with Keiichi at the center. Plus, the relationships between Mion and Shion, and between Shion and Sadako are both looking good. Keiichi in particular has become extremely dependable. He has strength and a powerful sense of justice. he's demonstrated leadership I'd never seen before. In the previous world, he was able to step forward and confront Takano. In which case, should I tell Keiichi and the others the truth and ask them to cooperate, like I did in the previous world? I'd do it. No. They were only able to believe me last time because of the abnormal circumstances of the curse of the 5th year. If I suddenly told them a huge story like that in a situation where nothing was happening, it's hard to tell if they'd believe me. What do you got to lose? And even if they did believe me, what help would their cooperation be? Even though the outcome was still unclear, it felt irresponsible, so there wouldn't be any point in talking to them. In the worst case, there's even a risk that getting them involved in this chain of misfortune would put them in danger. In fact, people died in the previous world because of their involvement. It's a clear example of the failure of knowing your enemy, but not how to deal with them. In which case, I'm on my own. No, that's the same as before. I've tried everything I could think of, but it was never good enough. So, I need to have an ally. And if that's the case, the most dependable person I have on my side is Keiichi!
やっぱり、圭一ですね。
I whispered that to nobody in particular while picturing Keiichi's face. Keiichi Maebara. He was shockingly impulsive, but he was a boy full of kindness and compassion for others. Even as things are now, I can trust him. But if he's able to somehow inherit his previous memories, he'll be even more dependable. Plus, I have a hunch that Keiichi will be the one to find a breakthrough. Even with the previous worlds, he was able to overcome the wall of fate long after I had given up. His strong will and propensity to take actions are qualities I never had. The question is, when should I divulge the truth to him? Even if I were to suddenly tell him about this, I'm still not confident he would take it seriously.
そうか。
Normally, Hanyu would be pushing me on my back at times like this. When she greeted me, I felt encouraged. When she opposed me, it gave me a rebellious feeling. But now that she's gone, I don't have any of that. So I'm unable to put my feelings behind me and move on. It was staggering. Ultimately, it made me even more aware of that fact that I hadn't made any decisions on my own thus far.
リカちゃん、終わったわよ。
I was beginning to wonder when you'd finish up. Just then, I heard Takano calling out to me from the front door of the clinic. I felt completely disgusted when she looked down at me with a bright smile. But I quickly regained my composure and responded with my usual smile and a nipa.
待ちくたびれたのです。あと10秒遅れたら置いていこうかと思っていたのですよ。ほら、リカ。やっぱり置き去りにするつもりだったのでございますわね。
Now listen here, Rika.
間に合ったから OK なのです。一緒に行くのですよ、ニパー。
As I said that, I dodged Sadako, who had come flying out of the entrance. I could see Irie behind Takano, so he must have finished his phone call.
そんなに急がなくてもまだ十分間に合いますよ。
部活の先輩としてはやはり一番乗りして皆さんを歓迎するのが筋でございましょう。何事も初めが肝心ですわ。早く行って歓迎トラップを仕掛けるつもりなのです。
あんまりやりすぎないようにね。新部員歓迎が退部者送迎になっては寂しいでしょうから。
そのあたりは加減いたしますわ。さあ行きましょう、リカ。圭一さんに遅れをとっては松代までの恥ですわよ。 では、また来週なのです。ペコリ。
I lightly bowed my head as I said that, then turned around. I sensed a hint of sadness on Irie's face in the corner of my view, but I did my best to ignore it. Because the person standing beside him was Takano.
Yoshi.
Alright, indeed. I think I'm going to go ahead and end things here. So, no scene featuring Rina yet. Maybe we'll see her in the next episode. But yeah. I'm quite curious to see what Rika is gonna do, what exactly she's gonna do to try to broach the subject of everything that's going on with Keiichi. I wonder how long it'll take to actually see that, though. Other than that, I don't really have much else to say other than, well, holy shit, Keiichi, you are now the class rep! You've been promoted! You are king! I always knew you had it in you, Keiichi. I always knew you were destined for greatness. So, with that all being said, I'm going to go ahead and end things here, and I sincerely hope that everybody who tuned in enjoyed this latest episode of the Higurashi and the Cry console arcs. If you did, and you'd like to see more content from me, feel free to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you all next time. Take care.